Hey everyone, and welcome to the Audit Guidebook channel. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most fundamental concepts in auditing and business, control activities. So let's get right into it. And just so you know, this explainer is a really key part of Module 2 in our Practical Guide to Audit series. So whether you're a student just starting out, a new auditor getting your feet wet, or maybe a seasoned professional looking for a quick refresher, you are absolutely in the right place. So let me ask you a question. How does a massive global company stop one single tiny mistake from snowballing into a multi-million-dollar disaster? Well, the answer is a robust system of checks and balances, and those are called control activities. That's exactly what we're breaking down today. Here's our game plan for this session. First, we'll cover the basics. What in the world are control activities? Then we'll walk through what I call the control timeline. That's prevent, detect, and correct. After that, we'll look at the big difference between manual and automated controls. And finally, we'll zero in on the really critical controls that every auditor absolutely needs to understand. All right, let's kick things off with the absolute basics. What exactly are we talking about when we say control activities? Well, you can really think of them as the bedrock, the foundation of risk management. So the formal definition is right there, but let's put it in simple terms. A control activity is basically any action, any policy, or any procedure that a company puts in place to manage its risks. It's all about making sure the company's objectives are met and, for our purposes, that financial reports are accurate. Think of it as the how behind a company's internal safety net. Now, controls aren't just a single action. They actually follow a kind of life cycle. And a really helpful way to think about it is like a story in 3 distinct acts: prevent, detect, and then correct. And you can see the logic flows perfectly, right? Your number one goal is always prevention, stop the problem before it even starts. But nothing's perfect, so if an error does slip through, you need a solid system to detect it. And then finally, once you've found an issue, you've got to have a process to correct it. Each step here is vital, so let's break them down. First up, we have preventative controls. These are your frontline defenders. Their whole job is to stop errors or fraud from ever occurring in the first place. The absolute classic example, and one you'll see everywhere, is the segregation of duties. You just never, ever want the same person preparing a payment to also be the one approving it. That simple separation is an incredibly powerful preventative control. But what happens if something gets past that first line of defense? Well, that's where detective controls come in. These are designed to find problems after they've already happened. A monthly bank reconciliation is a perfect example. You're comparing what your books say to what the bank's records say to find any differences. It won't stop the mistake from happening, but it's a fantastic way to find it later. And that brings us to our final act, corrective controls. So, you've detected an issue, now what? You have to fix it. This isn't just about fixing the one transaction, like adjusting an accounting entry. It's also about fixing the root cause, updating the policy or retraining staff so that this specific problem doesn't keep happening over and over again. So we've talked about when controls happen in that timeline, but we can also classify them by how they're performed. And this brings us to a really crucial distinction in modern auditing: manual versus automated controls. In other words, people versus systems. On one side, you have your manual controls. This is anything done by a person, a supervisor, physically signing an expense report, for example. These controls rely on human judgment and action. On the other side, you have automated controls, which are built right into the company's IT systems. A great example is a system that automatically forces you to change your password every 90 days. It's no surprise that in today's world, auditors are totally laser-focused on proving the reliability of these automated systems. Okay, so with all these different flavors of controls out there, where does an auditor even start? You can't test everything, so you have to concentrate on what we call the critical controls. This is where an auditor focuses their energy. And at the very top of that list are key controls. These are the most important ones. They're the controls that, if they fail, could lead to a significant error in the financial statements, what we call a material misstatement. For instance, requiring senior management to approve any very large payments is a key control because it directly tackles a major financial risk. Next are the general IT controls, or GITCs. Now, these aren't about a single transaction. They're the foundation of the entire IT environment. We're talking about data backups, firewalls, and how the company manages system updates. And here's the main takeaway. If a company's GITCs are weak, you just can't trust the data coming out of any of its systems. They're the bedrock of digital trust. And finally, we have application controls. Now, if GITCs are the foundation for the whole IT house, these are controls specific to a single piece of software, a single application. A great example is input validation. You know when you're filling out a form and you try to type letters into the phone number box and it just rejects it? That's an application control. It's making sure the data is accurate, right at the source. So that brings us to the end, and I want to leave you with a question to really think about. As technology, AI, and automation continue to completely reshape how businesses operate, which of these control types do you think will become the most essential for auditors to master in the future? And that is our deep dive into control activities. If this helped you out, please hit that like button and definitely subscribe to the Audit Guidebook channel. We have plenty more explainers just like this one to help you build your audit expertise. Thanks so much for watching.